Okay, I tell you an incredible story. It happened yesterday. First of all, please remember, are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. There is available for anybody. It is just for people who join in sometimes. There is available an outline, a basic outline of the entire Parsha, which is available at dovidbkaplan.com. That's my website. And or at my email, dovidbkaplan@gmail. You could go to either one. For $8, you could have this, and it's just a basic outline, which would be great to read at the Shabbos table for your family, for the what do you call it?
Is it D-O or D-A?
D-O, D-O-V-I-D. The O is in Oscar Robertson, the big O. That's O is in Oscar. You never heard of Oscar Robertson? You never heard of Oscar Robertson?
Kings player, triple-double.
Hey!
There you go.
How do you know that? Nice. He averaged a triple-double over the entire season.
Oh, really?
Oscar Robertson, the only player who did so.
What, in basketball?
And basketball. Now, he also, Nate Archibald is the only guy who led the league both in scoring and assists in the same year, but that's because they can't calculate assists differently. If they would have been calculating it the same way when Oscar was playing, he would have also led in assists, scoring and assists in the same season. But these are just trivial things that don't matter, any more than life itself. So what happened was yesterday, this is amazing. You just see the hand of Hashem over here. Yesterday, last night, I had to give a talk. I was in Har Nof, which is about a half hour from my house. So my son-in-law happened to be over at the house, so he gave me a ride all the way to Har Nof, and he dropped me off. And I finished in Har Nof, and I could go back to Neve Yaakov. And as we started driving, the cab driver I was in a cab on the way home, he put on the Waze. And the regular way to go, which involved going through, there's a bridge, not a bridge, a tunnel. The tunnel was closed off, and there was a lot of traffic. It was all clogged up, and we had to he took an alternative route that he managed to figure out with the Waze. He took an alternative route. So I walk into the house, and as soon as I walk in, my son and my daughter are there. And my daughter says to me, Daddy, did you have trouble at the bridge? Was the bridge clogged up? I said, yeah, there's a lot of traffic. And she goes, it's because of him. She points to her husband, my son-in-law. I said, what are you talking about? So what happened was he was driving and he was going through this tunnel and he saw a car in front of him with smoke coming out of the back of the car. Then he saw smoke coming out of the front of the car. So he drove around and cut them off. And he told the guy, it was a young Kolol guy, he told the guy to pull over to the side of the road and get everybody out of the car. And he said the guy couldn't even get the door open because he was just so tense and nervous. So my son-in-law said, give me the key. And he took the key and opened the door to the car. And then he had to get the wife out, and his wife, his parents, and there was a baby who was strapped into a baby seat in the back seat. And the wife couldn't get the baby out because she was too nervous. So he reached in and he kind of ripped the cord and, pulled the baby out of the car. And he said, okay, everybody just start running, move down as far as you can, as fast as you can. And they all moved down this bridge. And a couple of minutes later, there were two explosions. The whole car went up in smoke. And the whole car, that's what clogged up the bridge. Isn't that incredible? And that's what, it clogged up the whole thing. And blew up. It was on fire, it blew up, the whole thing. He saved the whole family. Inconvenienced me, but he saved, well, that's what son-in-laws do. See, son-in-laws and father-in-laws, there's always that thing. But he saved the whole family. He happens to be, he's been around, he knows cars very well, and he's just one of these people he's wide awake. If I saw smoke coming out of the back of a car, I would just think it's exhaust. They were driving with smoke. He noticed the smoke. He drove around the front and he cut them off.
They continued to drive.
They were driving. They didn't even notice it. I don't think they even noticed it.
Why were they so tense?
Because as he pulled them out, he said, your car is on smoke. You got to get out of the car. And then they saw the smoke. He said, you get out of the car. And then you get out of the car fast. Once you tell somebody to do it, he couldn't even, he would have called. I don't even know if I would have been aware, but he's been around cars. He knows cars. And he cut them off so they wouldn't go. And then he had to move out. And then what do you call it? Then it blew up. It blew up. It was on fire. It's what do you call it?
Blew up too?
No, his car, he managed to move his car away. In any event, we are on.
This guy that was in here?
No, it's my son-in-law. No, that's not my son-in-law. No, that's just a guy. Okay, page 204. Now I'm going to tell you something, and we're going to show you a subject over here.
The one that just got married?
Yeah, I just got married 5 years ago. What do you call it? You never just get married, by the way. You never just get married. You think you're just getting married, then you find out it's a whole lot more than just. But they say all marriages are happy, by the way. All marriages are happy. It's the living together afterwards that's a problem. So the what do you call it? Now I'm going to show you something incredible here. The brothers sell Yosef off to the Yishmaelim on page 204. That's where we got to. They pulled him out of the pit and they sell Yosef. And then at the 2 lines from the bottom, it says Vayeishev Reuben el Habor. Reuben returns to the pit. V'hine ein Yosef Habor. Yosef's not there. Vayikra es begodov. He rends his garment. Reuben had hoped to get Yosef, rescue him, and bring him back to his father. And we spoke yesterday about the fact that Reuben he understood that he would be blamed, but he also felt that it's not right. There's no reason to be killing Yosef, and he wanted to take him back. Now take a look at Rashi here. Because Rashi says, where was Reuben? Where was Reuben? I mean, why wasn't he with the brothers? So Rashi is at the left column, last line. Rashi says, Vayeishev Reuben, uv'mechirasa lo hayasham. He wasn't there at the time of the sale. Why? Shehigia yomo leilechu l'shamesh es aviv. It was his turn in the rotation to go and take care of Yaakov Avinu. Everybody took turns, and it makes logical sense. Reuven, it was his turn. Then Rashi says, Davar acher, asukaya, he was busy, bisako uvetanisa, with his sackcloth and fasting. Al shebilbel yitzui aviv. He was doing tshuva for having, if you remember when Rachel died, he got involved, and Yaakov moved his bed into Bilhah's tent, and Reuven moved it into Leah's tent, which was, what are you getting involved in your father's personal life for? And he's doing tshuva. He was doing tshuva for that. That's what Rashi says. Okay. The question is that incident with Reuven, with Bilhah, took place about 10 years earlier. The incident with Reuven and with Bilhah when Rachel died was 10 years earlier. So why is Reuven doing tshuva now for the incident that took place with Rachel 10 years earlier? Why are we doing tshuva now? I mean, that was 10 years ago. I'm sure he did tshuva then. Why are you doing tshuva now? Of all times to do tshuva? Why? Again, Rachel, again, Alicia, listen. Rachel died. Yaakov moved his bed from Rachel's tent, which was his main tent, into Bilhah's tent. And Reuven came along and said, listen, there's one thing that my mother's sister was the main wife and caused my mother, she had to go through that pain of saying the sister is the main wife. But now that the sister's out of the way, now the maidservant's going to be the main wife? I object. And he goes, hold all the questions. And he went and took Yaakov's bed and he put it back into his own mother's house, into Leah's tent. And that he was criticized for. Clear. Remember the story. Okay. Says Rashi, now fast forward 10 years later, Yosef is now 17, and they're selling Yosef. And Reuven wasn't there at the time of the sale. He comes back to the pit, Yosef's gone already. Why? Says Rashi, 2 reasons. Number 1, that he was attending his father. Alternatively, says Rashi, there's another medrash that says that he was why wasn't he there? Because he was doing tshuva. What was he doing tshuva for? For what had happened 10 years earlier. That's what Rashi says. I'm just telling you what Rashi says.
Was he doing tshuva because
what's that? Just listen.
his brothers were mistreating him?
Oh, so why? But what's it got to do with him?
Because he wanted to ask Hashem to have them relieve him.
But he can't help what they're doing. He can't help what they're doing. So you're close. You're close, but for a different reason. You're close for a different reason. Let me tell you an incident that took place. What happened is like this. Let's ask ourselves a question. The brothers are making a decision here. Not only that, it says there are sources that say that they conducted themselves as a Beis Din. They made themselves a rabbinical court, and they ruled that Yosef is liable for the death penalty. They ruled he is a pursuer. That Yosef is pursuing them because he's bringing a bad report, which puts them into a situation where they deserve to die, and he's a false report, and therefore they sentenced him to death. That's what the sources say. There's only one question. Who is the leader of the generation? Yaakov Avinu. So why don't you just ask Yaakov? Why don't you just go and ask Yaakov, what should we do? Should we put him to death or not? What happened to Yaakov? Why is Yaakov out? And the answer is that under normal circumstances, they would have. Because Yaakov was the authority. Can you buck the authority or not? Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't, except that there was a precedent. What was the precedent? Reuben was the precedent. Reuben decided, Yaakov's an opinion. He thinks his bed should go over here. And I have a different opinion. I think his bed should go over here. Oh, Reuben set a precedent that we're all entitled to our opinion. So come along the brothers say, well, we also have an opinion. At that point, Reuben says, Dovid, this is getting close to what you said. At that point, Reuben realizes, you know where did they get the idea that they are on equal footing with Yaakov Avinu and could come to their own conclusion? Where did they get that idea from? They got it from me. I set the precedent. When? 10 years ago. That's why he's doing tshuva now. Now he's seeing what the results of his previous actions are. My previous actions have caused what's happening today. And therefore, I have to do tshuva. In other words, there are several layers of tshuva. There's tshuva for what I did, and there's tshuva for what the fallout is. There's tshuva for the ripple effect. How do you like that? That's the downside. There was a shul in America, a conservative synagogue. They needed a new rabbi. So there was this young, talented rabbi, and he met with the board of directors. And they were taken with this guy. He was charismatic, he was a great speaker, he was a fundraiser, a people person, he had all the tools. He only had one condition. He said, I could be the rabbi of shul, we'll grow the shul, everything. There's only one thing. We have to put in a mechitza. We have to put a mechitza in the shul. And the board of directors said, listen, we're willing for you as a conservative, it was a conservative temple. They said, for you, we'll do it because we want you to be the rabbi. The only thing is, we can't give you a final notice, a final yes, until we speak to the president of the shul. So they go to the president of the shul, and the president says no. Says, as long as I'm the president, there's not going to be mechitza. We're not making this into an Orthodox shul. So they came back and they said to the rabbi, we can't, the president won't allow it. So he said, let me talk to him. I'll win him over. So he goes over to the president of the shul, who's not a religious Jew. He says to him, we could grow the shul, grow all. I'm asking, he says, as long as I'm the president, this will never be an Orthodox shul. He says, okay, I say, why not? What's your vehement? You're so vehemently opposed. What's the problem? So the president of the shul says to him, I'll tell you something. I have a neighbor who's an Orthodox Jew. For the last 25 years, he's been building a sukkah next door to my house. For 25, I don't build a sukkah. I'm not observant. He's been building a sukkah. Not once in 25 years has he invited me into his sukkah. If that's what Orthodoxy is, then I'm not interested. There's not going to be an Orthodox synagogue. He didn't get the position. They didn't get the growth. Now, it would seem to be, to make the point that we're getting at, because of the behavior or lack of behavior, you see what the ripple effects are. So you didn't invite your neighbor in, and therefore, the shul, that's the responsibility. Now, between me and you, I heard this story. I heard this story years ago. And people kind of look at it like, wow, that's what Orthodox. Between me and you, if he would have invited him in, the guy would have probably said, don't get pushy with your Judaism. He's looking for an excuse to pick. That's usually what it is. He's usually looking for an excuse to pick, but we don't want to provide them with the excuses. Mm-hmm. So there's a concept of you always got to be aware of the ripple effects. I want to tell you a couple of true incidents that happened just to show you, because it's not only on the negative, it works on the positive. It works on the positive. That's okay. You can pick it up. It works on the positive. The first one was, and I think I've mentioned this one to you. There are different versions of the story, but the story is basically there was a frum man who got sick, and he went to a doctor. You know the story? Frum man went to a doctor, an oncologist. And the oncologist was a secular Jew. And he tells this guy, look, after the exam, he says to the guy, look, you got two choices here. You could either let the disease run its course, and it'll be relatively painless, but it'll run its course, and within 6 months, you'll die. The alternative is to start a series of treatments which are very uncomfortable, but they'll extend your life 3 or 4 years. Which one do you want to do? The guy said, I don't know. I have to consult with my rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, that's all. So I went to Rabbi Moshe, and Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said to him, well, let's make a calculation. In the next 3 years, how many pages of Gemara will you learn? How many times will you answer Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah? How many times will you make Kiddush? How many times are you going to put on tefillin? There's no question that you have to try to stay alive as long as possible. Comes back to the doctor, Dr. Goldberg, I'll start the treatments. So he says, okay, come back in 4 weeks, get the chemicals set up, get everything set up, and we'll start the treatments. Comes back 4 weeks later, knocks on the door, Dr. Goldberg, come in. Goes into the office, Dr. Goldberg's not there. There's a guy sitting behind the desk with a big black yarmulke, a little bit of beard growth, big pair of tzitzis on his shirt. He says, sorry, I'm looking for Dr. Goldberg. He starts backing out. He says, it's me. This is a double take. Sure enough, it's Dr. Goldberg. He says, what's going on? He says, I want to tell you something. I've been an oncologist for 30 years. In all the years I've been a doctor, never once has the patient chosen to take the pain option. All patients have chosen the easy way out. I went to speak to your Rabbi Feinstein to find out why you're choosing the pain option. He explained to me what a mitzvah is. He explained to me what Yiddishkeit is. And myself, my wife, and my entire family have become Baalei Tshuva since then. Now, if you stop and think, besides the mitzvahs that Reb Moshe Feinstein enumerated for him, now his actions have affected an entire family, and he will be credited with the merits of the mitzvahs that this family performed. So you have one thing that you do is going to have, here Reuben is doing tshuva for the negative effects, but there are also positive influences. And the positive influences is something that then it goes on our scorecard. When there's a positive influence, you get credit for it. Number one. There was another, I don't know if you know anything about the history, it's an unbelievable incident that took place. In the early days of the state of Israel, when the Yemenites came to Israel, the secular leadership of the country incarcerated them in these internment camps. And first of all, they cut off their payas, the Yemenites call simanim. They cut off their payas, and they tried to secularize them. They wouldn't give them, they said you could only get a job. You couldn't get a job unless you were willing to secularize yourself. And they tried, the whole families, they were basically trying to stomp out Judaism. You don't need Judaism, you don't need tefillin in Israel. Israel's enough without tefillin. You don't need Shabbos. It was a terrible period. And there was an organization of activists called Pe'ilim. Pe'ilim literally means the activists. And these were from guys who were sent by the Gedolim, by the leaders of the generation, to penetrate, to get into these camps, to try to influence and talk to the people who were incarcerated in these camps. And often they would dig under the fence to get in, and there were armed guards there. And they would often get beaten up and thrown out. And the Chazon Ish, who was the leader of the generation, he was actually sending these young guys into the camps. So one day he sent these two guys to go into the camp on a mission and try to speak to the Jews there. And what happened was they got to the fence, and there was an armed guard there who saw them. So they started walking back and forth. These are bearded yeshiva guys, frum-looking yeshiva guys with beards, walking back and forth. And the armed guard saw them, and they paced back and forth for a few hours and couldn't get into the camp because there was no opportunity. So after about 2 or 3 hours, they went back to the Chazon Ish, and they said to the Chazon Ish, the mission was a failure. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing came of it. The Chazon Ish said to them, you did what you had to do. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu run his world. Okay? Fast forward 20 years. One of these young guys who had been there is now middle-aged, and he was at a wedding. And he sits down at a table next to this frum Yemenite guy. It's a frum, older Yemenite guy, beard, payas, the whole thing. And they started schmoozing. And he says to this Yemenite, what's your background? He says, I was incarcerated in one of the camps, and they were pressuring us. He says, and one day I decided I'm going to have to give in. They told us there are no Jews in the world with beards anymore, and the beards are obsolete, and I was going to cut off my payas and my beards and everything else. I was going to buy into their thing. And that night I took a walk outside by the camp fence, and I saw two guys pacing back and forth for a few hours with beards, two frum-looking guys. And I said to myself, hey, there are still religions. You know what? I'm not going to give in. I didn't give in, and now I'm a grandfather with grandchildren, and the entire family is from. Well, the Chazon Ish was saying, you guys thought that nothing came of it. You thought nothing came of it. Those were the two guys that were pacing back and forth. So in life, you have to know, you don't know what the effects are. You just don't know what the effects are. And a person has to know that it's a negative and in the positive. One second, I'll tell you another one. There was in Chicago at the community kollel. There's a Lakewood community kollel in Chicago. And one day the secular kid comes in, and he goes up to the rabbi. They go, it's not an outreach kollel, there's not a kiruv kollel, but the secular kid comes walking in, a secular teenager comes walking in. He's early 20s. He says, hi, this is Jewish education here, right? He says, yeah. I said, I'd like to study over here. So the rabbi, took him in. He says, there's a guy searching, and I took him in. He got him involved with people and so on and so forth. He just said to him, why did you come in here? He said, I'm a vendor at Wrigley Field. I'm a vendor. And there are these religious guys who are also vendors. I myself vended. I vended once at Wrigley Field, once at Soldiers Field. I was a vendor. And he said, there are these religious guys who are vendors. And I noticed that every game, when you're a vendor, I could tell you it's hustle. You're hustling, you don't want to lose a minute. You hustle, you sell, you go refill, and you sell. He said, these guys, I saw these religious guys, every time there's a ball game, after the sixth inning, they stop what they're doing, and about 10 of them get together and they pray. They got that mincha. So they have a minyan. He said, I know what vending is like. Nobody stops vending to go and do something else because you got a limited amount of time. And I was very impressed with these guys. And not only that, I saw one of these guys, somebody paid him for 3 Cokes. Somebody gave him a $100 bill instead of a $10 bill. And this religious guy goes and he says, hey, sorry, you gave me 100 instead of a 10. He says, vendors don't do that. He said, when I saw what kind of religious behavior this is, I decided I want to find out what this is all about. This is where I found out. They came into the kollel for these guys. Can you imagine you're davening mincha? And because you're davening mincha, that's inspiring somebody else. The lesson is everything we're doing in life has an effect. Every single thing that we're doing is having an effect, and we don't even know what the effect is. I have no idea what the effect is. The most impressive one that I heard, this one boggles the mind, is a famous story where you've probably heard of Rabbi Pesach Krohn. It's a story that I once read in one of his books, but then there was a second part of the story which I had to tell him because he didn't know about it. There was a guy walks into a shul in Dallas, Texas. I don't have to say Texas. Everybody knows Dallas is in Texas. It's like a guy said to the guy once, where are you from? He said, Lakewood, New Jersey. Yeah, Lakewood is in New Jersey. I don't know of any Lakewood, Afghanistan. The Lakewood's in New Jersey. So Dallas, is there a Lakewood somewhere else? Yeah, nobody talks about it though. There's only when we say Lakewood, we mean Lakewood. It's like there's only one. What do you call it? There's a Dallas. You know of another Dallas anywhere?
You know of another Bethlehem?
Yeah.
There are. There are a few Bethlehems.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
Right? Where's
Pennsylvania.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? Right, one of those things. This is Dallas, Texas. Whatever the case,
Dallas is
a
Dallas.
guy walks into a shul in Dallas, Texas. This is unbelievable. Listen to this. Guy walks into a shul in Dallas, Texas. He says, Rabbi, can I speak to you? He says, well, I'm very busy right now. I says, Rabbi, I'd like to make a donation to your shul. He said, I'm not that busy. Come on in. Sits down with the rabbi, and he says to the rabbi, I'd like to make a donation to your shul. And he writes him out a check for $12,000. Now we're going back a long time. $12,000. The rabbi looks and he says, wow, our community's grown. We wanted to build an education center here. And the startup cost was $10,000. We don't have anywhere near that money. We're in debt. Your money will get us started. And once we're started and you get a frame up, it's easier to get donations. I only have one question. Why would you come in here sight unseen and give me a drive? I've never met you in my life. Why would you come in and give me a donation like that? So the guy says, Rabbi, look, I'm a completely unaffiliated Jew. I'm totally secular. I was in Israel for the first time in my life last month. We were on a tour. And we were going from city to city. On the very last day of the tour, we went to the Western Wall. And I was at the Western Wall, and I saw this Hasidic Jew with a shtreimel davening. He was praying at the Western Wall. I said, Rabbi, I have never in my life seen somebody pray with that kind of devotion. I was mesmerized, I was enchanted. I couldn't get my eyes off this guy. On the plane home on the next day, I still in my mind's eye, I saw an image of this Jew praying. So I made up my mind that I'm going to go to an Orthodox synagogue and make a donation in honor of this Jew. It so inspired me. So I opened up the Yellow Pages, which is what we did pre-Google. I opened up the Yellow Pages, I looked up Orthodox synagogue, found you, and here's a donation. I said, thank you very much. End of story. Now, imagine that Jew who was praying at the Kaisel, at the Western Wall, after 120 years he comes up to heaven for his heavenly judgment. And they bring out the ledger. And the voice, they open up the ledger. It says, okay, here's your reward for tzedakah, here's your reward for prayer, here's your reward for kindness, here's your reward for Torah study, here's your reward. And the guy interrupts, he says, thank you very much, but you got me credited with way more Torah study than I really deserve. I mean, I learned, but you got me down there for much, much, much more. I mean, there must be some sort of mistake here. And the heavenly court says to him, no mistake at all. You see, you are credited with the Torah that was learned by hundreds of children in a school that was built in Dallas, Texas, because some secular Jew was inspired by your prayer at the Kaisel, and he donated money to get that shul built. And this Hasidic Jew is like, where's Dallas? Where's Texas? Now, what was he praying for at the Kaisel? I have no idea. He's got 14 daughters. I imagine he's praying for something else. I'm not sure what he's praying for. The last thing he's doing is davening for a shul in Dallas, Texas. But there's something called an effect. And in the mitzvah that you do, there's the mitzvah and there's the ripple effect of the mitzvah, and he's now credited with those people, with all that Torah learning. So when that was the point of the story. That was the first half. That was where Rabbi Pesach Krohn told that story. In our neighborhood, where I live, we have a community tzedakah fund. So one Shabbos, I was involved with this tzedakah fund with other people, and we decided to make an appeal in the shuls. Our neighborhood is there's half Americans, half Anglos, half Israelis, and a frum neighborhood. So a couple of us, we spoke in the various shuls. So I told this story in one of the shuls, and my point was that when you give tzedakah to a family, let's say you give a family $100. So, okay, you now got the mitzvah of giving tzedakah. But if the kids now eat a better breakfast because they could afford better food, and then study Torah better that day in Cheder, so now you have credit for their. You now get credit for the what do you call it, for the learning that they did. And if the husband and wife get along better because there's less stress and tension because they got more money, so now you get credit for that shalom bayis. You understand? It's not just the one act. So I was trying to explain, for the community tzedakah fund, if you give money, there's a ripple effect to the money that you give. Okay. One of the other speakers heard me tell the story. So he told the story in his shul, one of the other guys involved with the fund. After he told this story, a kolol guy walks over to him with two little kids, and he says to him, I just want to tell you something. I'm from Dallas, Texas.
No way.
I was educated in that school. This is the next generation.
Wow.
How do you like that? It's real, it's live, and it's tangible. So when a person understands that there is a very real effect of what you're doing, everything has an effect. Everything has an effect. Did you ever hear the story that there was in one of the ghettos or in Germany, there was a Rav. I forgot who the Rav was. I forgot who the Rav was. He was one of the big Hasidic Rabbanim. Every day he used to take a walk. And there was this German, like a German professional, I don't know, guy was an accountant or something, he was a German professional. He'd see him on the street, a non-Jew. And every morning the rabbi would go for a walk and he'd say, "Good morning, Herr Mueller." And he'd say, "Good morning, Herr Rabbiner." Right? He would take his walk every single morning. "Good morning, Herr Mueller. Good morning, Herr Rabbiner." Okay, went on for a few years. Then the war broke out. This guy was taken to one of the camps, and he got off the train, and they're bringing him up to the line, coming up the line where they're going to decide if he's going to wear and people, anybody who goes off to the left is going to be killed. Anybody who goes off to the right stays alive. And as he gets to the head table, and he sees the commandant of the camp is standing there, and he looks at him and he says, "Good morning, Herr Mueller." He says, "Good morning, Herr Rabbiner." Sends him off to the right, keep him alive. He appreciated somebody saying good morning to him. Sometimes the good morning can keep you alive also. So we don't understand. That's the point. And that's what Reuben is. Now I understand what happened. I understand what happened as a result of what I did. Now let's go on. Just telling you guys, every mitzvah that you do, there's a lot more to it than what you think you're doing. Now, they come to Yaakov and they dip on page 206. They dip the tunic in blood, in goat's blood. And there's a certain amount of mida keneged mida over here. You deceived your father with goat's blood, even though with goat skins, and therefore you're deceived with goat's blood. And the Yaakov Avinu, remember, he put on the goats. And I think part of this is a protection for the brothers, because if Yaakov sees through it and he says, "Hey, you're trying to deceive me," then they could say, "Well, Dad, we learned from the best." We learned from the best because we. So Yaakov, by the way, the Medrash says that's what Leah said to Yaakov. When Yaakov married Rachel and found out that it was Leah, he said, "You deceived me." She said, "Yeah, I'm only a student of the Rebbe." That's what the Medrash says. That means everything what goes around comes around. Now, one second. So it says over here, they come to Yaakov, take a look, Pasuk Lamed Gimel. They said, "Vayishalchu es aksonas," on page 206, 3 lines from the top. "Vayishalchu es aksonas apasim, vayaviu el aviyem." They take the garment and bring it to their father. And there's one opinion that they sent it with other people because nobody wanted to bring it because to be confronted. There's one opinion that they drew lots. Okay, who's going to bring it? And it ended up Yehuda brought it. Vayomer zos matzana, we found this. Hakir no haksonas bin chahiim lo. Is this your son's garment or not? Vayakira, he recognized it. Vayomer ksones bini. Chaya achalosu. He says, "Oi, it's my son's garment. A wild animal ripped them apart. Torov Yosef. Yosef was torn apart." Vayikra Yaakov Simlosav, he rends his garments. Vayosem sak b'mosa, puts on. Vayisabel al beno yamim rabim. He mourns on for his son many days. Now, the what do you call it? The intensity of the grief. The Gemara says that when somebody dies, so a mace is mishtakeach min alev. Eventually, a person never forgets his grandparents, he doesn't forget his parents, but the intensity of the grief with time is reduced. But at the moment that it happens, there's intense grief. But over time, the grief is reduced. Yaakov's intensity of grief at the moment that he thought Yosef died did not dissipate for 22 years. Because Yosef was alive. It didn't dissipate. Yosef was alive. The decree that it will dissipate is only if the person is truly dead. Yosef was alive. So that when God created that characteristic that the grief should dissipate, that only applies if the person is truly dead. Here he was alive. And Yaakov's grief was intense for 22 years. Now, 1 second. You'll notice, look at Yaakov's reaction. Don't you see something strange here? It says, again, Pasuk 33. Is this the cloak? Vayakira, 5 lines from the top. He recognized it. Vayomer ksonas b'ni chaya roach. It's the garment of my son. A wild animal ate him. Torov tov, Yosef has been ripped apart. Vayomer? What does Vayomer mean? He said? He said it? What would you expect somebody to do under the circumstances where they realize that their favorite son has been ripped apart? To cry, to scream? What did Esav do when he realized that Yaakov had taken the bracha? What was Esav? He gave a yell, a hippo hurricane holler. See the contract between Yosef and Yaakov? A Jew is always in control. Yaakov's despondent. He mourns. He does the halachic requirement, but he doesn't yell out of control. There's no wailing and yelling out of control. Vayomer, he says it. Esav screams, total out of control. When Rav Aaron Kotler was nifter, he was in the hospital. Rav Aaron Kotler was the Gadol Ador. He was nifter. He passed away. There was his wife, and there were many students in the room. And as soon as he died, the students started crying. His wife turned around and closed the door to the hospital room so none of the other patients should be disturbed by the crying. Coming out of the room. A Jew is always in control. So Yaakov Avinu is a Vayomer over here. Now, 1 second. They try to comfort him. Everybody gets up, they try to comfort him. Yaakov can't be comforted. And in the meantime, Yosef is sold to Potiphar. There's one question that remains here. Why did the brothers do this? Why didn't they just come to Yaakov and say, where's Yosef? Yaakov, the brothers come home and Yaakov says, where's Yosef? Search up. Why? We don't know. We never saw him. Why did they just say Yosef never showed up? Why did they have to go and pretend that he was killed? Just say he never showed up.
It wouldn't be believable.
Why?
Because Yosef is his favorite son, and he has kavod for his father. So
Yeah, but he never showed up. Something happened on the way. He got killed by an animal. I mean, he thinks he got killed by an animal. So Yaakov will draw his own conclusions. Why did they have to go and do this? Why not just say he never showed up?
You would have went looking for him.
Yeah.
Huh?
You would have went looking for him.
Good, excellent. That's one of the answers, is that Yaakov would have then sent out a search party for him. Maybe he'll find him. And then it won't be good, because he says, number one. Number two, they didn't want to tell an out and out lie. They just brought in the garment. They said, do you recognize the garment? And Yaakov is the one who says, Yosef was killed. Yosef died, Yosef was ripped apart. You see again, this idea of trying to resist the lie as much as possible. Even you're perpetrating a lie, but I don't want to say a lie. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu is the one who's going to come, who's going to draw the conclusion. Okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about Messianic, the inception of Mashiach, and we're going to talk about Mirza Shem Yosef and Mrs. Potiphar.